Uh, Hello, welcome to the Leisure Talk Brussels in transit, because actually it's happening now in New York, and inside the gallery space that hold our exhibition links directly to the topic of the Laser Talk, Symbiosis, Art in the Age of AI. And I want to tell a few words that when Adelette Chua, the director of Sylvia, Wald and Paul Kim Foundation, invited me to curate the exhibition, I decided to explore the complex and evolving relationship between human creativity and artificial intelligence, and to focus on the different ways artists produce their work. We have with us moderator Carla Gannis, and I would like to shortly introduce her. She is American transmedia artist based in New York and a professor of NYU Tandon School for Engineering. Her art is characterized by a commitment to experimentation. Throughout her career, she has worked with the area of mediums and tools, including drawing, painting, video, interactivity, extended reality, and machine learning. Her multi-layer narrative explores identity within an atomized and hyper-real 21st century context, capturing the spirit of our rapidly shifting visual and technological times through the blended historical art influences with contemporary digital semiotics and speculative fiction. So, Carla, please,
Okay.
I give you the floor and
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out today. I am going to introduce each of our panelists and the artists of this show. I'm going to read from the actual catalog, which I think they're available at the front of the gallery, and thank you for hosting us today. I'm just going to read brief excerpts for each of your bios so that we can get into the meat of the matter, and each artist will present 5 minutes on their work. I will be timing you all so that we can get to the Q&A, okay? And then we'll have a lively conversation to unpack a little bit more about art and AI today. So first, I will start with Alexandra, who was born in 1960 in Moscow and has studied journalism, fine arts, both in Moscow and in Brussels, Belgium. And your practice, her artistic practice, is grounded in exploring the interaction between the viewer and the artwork, especially through technologically progressive visualization methods. Her research process is deeply rooted in the cultural context of the present, exploring how photography and other digital media, through their traces, bear witness to contemporary events and technologies. In a similar way, she reflects on behavioral patterns and cultural mechanisms that define contemporary society, using her installations to document and engage with the increasingly technological world that we inhabit. Next, we have Anna Frants at the end here. And Anna is an internationally renowned new media artist and curator, known for co-founding CYLAND Media Art Lab and the CYLAND Foundation. And it is an active nonprofit organization dedicated to new media art and houses the largest online archive of Eastern European video art. Frants is a significant figure in the global dialogue surrounding experimental and new media art, and her interactive installations have been showcased in prestigious locations across the world. And we'll keep going. Petermfriess. Okay. Petermfriess, also known by his artistic aliases, always love some aliases, Petermfriess and Copyzen, is a European conceptual artist based in Brussels, Belgium. He holds a PhD in self-organizing complex social systems and a degree in space technology, blending scientific exploration with creative practice. And Fries's interdisciplinary approach spans artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, biotechnology, system theory, transhumanism, space exploration, and ecology, and it is all reflecting his diverse academic and artistic interests. Aernoudt Jacobs is a Belgian artist who works primarily with sound as his medium. Yes, I'm getting, we had not been introduced. And it was like, which way do I look? Apologies for that, Aernoudt. His practice is both phenomenological and empirical, drawing on acoustic and technological research to explore how sound can trigger sonic processes that influence the observer's perception. And Jacobs' work focuses on a central question: how can the complexity, richness, and stratification of our daily environment be translated into an experience that can truly be felt? And then we have Eunsu Kang. Eunsu is an artist, researcher, and educator whose work explores the intersection of art and machine learning, particularly focusing on the creative potential of AI. She began her artistic career with video installations and single-channel videos. Over time, her practice has evolved into interactive and interdisciplinary art projects with this current emphasis on the emerging field of AI-driven art. I'll keep going if I can turn the page. And William Latham is not here today. And so we'll go to Lev Manovich, who is an artist, author, and one of the world's most influential digital culture theorists. He is a presidential professor at the Graduate Center, City University of New York, and the founder of the Cultural Analytics Lab. After studying visual art and architecture and filmmaking, Manovich began using computers to create digital art in 1984. His digital art projects have been shown in 122 group exhibitions and 14 solo shows worldwide. And last but not least, Koen Theys.
Koen Theys.
Koen Theys. All right. Koen Theys is a Belgian artist known for his pioneering use of video art in the early 1980s. His international breakthrough came with works such as Diana and his interpretation of Richard Wagner's Der Ring der, I'm not going to pronounce it correctly, Nibelungen.
The Ring of the Nibelungen.
Thank you. I knew I was kind of butchering that, which helped establish him as one of the first artists in Belgium to creatively explore the medium of video. And since then, in his recent work, Diasporalia, it was commissioned by the Cathedral of Our Lady in Antwerp. He created 12 unique refugee beds made of bronze, complete with personal belongings. And the absence of the refugees themselves invites viewers to reflect on the missing identities and the lives in transit that they represent. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to begin with the artist talks. These, again, are going to be lightning talks, 5 minutes each. And we'll start with you, Anna. And why don't we just go down the line?
During COVID, PACE Gallery, which was working with the Sony Corporation at the moment, asked a number of artists to create a character based on Japanese mythology. It's half fish, half bird, and it's supposed to be lucky charm for people. I wrote her during the COVID. What's happening here? And I let him travel around the world, and I used the live cams as a background. What's happening here at the library of the live cams, there are millions of them, are virtually endless. And what AI does, it's in real time it processes background based on geographical location. So this guy walks around and keeping his lucky charm.
My work is the work that is printed there. It's visual and sound work. It's based on the idea that we have, well, not the idea, but the fact that there are electromagnetic waves in the world around us. And so what I do is I translate these electromagnetic waves into a mimesis of voices. And for this translation process, I use AI to analyze first the electromagnetic waves that I recorded during like the last couple of years, and voices that I recorded also the last years. And by combining these two databases, I use an algorithm that translates these two elements into a mimesis of voices. On top of that, it's a special speaker because how it works is it's a foil that has crystals inside. So the properties of this foil is that it can translate electricity into movement. So by using a process of screen printing, by adding layers to this foil, I can create a movement into this foil that activates it and that makes sound audible. And also light, of course, because the light is also a component of the layers that I add to it. So there's colors and voices that you hear.
Okay, yes, so my artwork is called Darwin 2, The Genesis of Tomorrow. It's over there, but we just paused it because the sound was running in the background. I had the chance to do a traveling residence in Ecuador end of 23. And Ecuador is very rich for, I think, the human and non-human diversity of all the species. I also had the chance to go to the Galapagos Island, which is a very nice place, and I was very grateful to be there. I think during the trip, I was constantly dialoguing with an AI and animating a dialogue between a human and non-human artist. And they were basically discussing about 60 principles, most of them coming from Charles Darwin's book, The Origin of Species, but I also added terms like transhumanism, epigenetics, which all came after Darwin. The book was published, I think, only 15 years after he went to Galapagos Island. I think it is around 1835, and the book was published in the 50s, 1850s, right? It took a long time. And so those artists discuss how a fusion of human, non-human technology could be envisioned, and of course inspired by evolutionary thinking of Charles Darwin, which can be questioned. But the idea was not to focus on Darwin, but to start from his points. By the way, some of his keywords you cannot use AI because it's blocked, like sexual selection is not working, right? So there are also things which in AI today cannot work or need to be circumvented, which is quite interesting. And then I used various kinds of AI to translate this outcome of this dialogue between the human and non-human artist into a visual story. You get creating images, working on a video, getting voices, getting a narration, getting a storyboard for making a compelling story about how to envision something post-transhumanist and having, I wouldn't say a super positive, but a way to say AI might help humanity to save its future and, of course, to maybe gain even more happiness. And certainly the idea to say, and that's maybe also interesting in terms of AI, to create either glitches or create new combinations, recombinations for enlarging our perspective. And I think our perspective is certainly, first of all different humans on the planet, but then we have much more non-humans, and there might be aliens later on. So I think there's a lot to become, and for me, the idea is not to use AI to detect all of them, but to open possibilities, and even to some extent, AI might help us to communicate with other species. That's a bit this thing. A final thought is that, because we discussed a bit during the trip towards New York and this time here, it's about the aesthetics of human, maybe non-human art, because what we do, what the art market does, what the people in New York do, that we judge on our human criteria of aesthetics, right? And we could think that AI might have different criteria, different preferences. They might prefer multidimensional spaces, elegance of algorithm. So there might be a way that to judge differently AI art, which is not an excuse, but also there might be art which we do not understand anymore, or maybe then AI needs to explain us. So I think there's an interesting way opening the field also towards a larger or continuous aesthetics, discussion aesthetics.
I started to work with AI because I wanted to create the images of my relative from another planet. Actually, I'm not from here. I'm extraterrestrial. So AI, it was in this case very helpful just to find the shape, because we looks like a little bit tardigrade, but I present myself like a human, but because this is like genetical modification. So actually, AI wasn't really something that I wasn't necessarily attracted, even if I'm working with the digital media, with the different kinds of the new technology, but it's happened. So when I start to work with it, so just you can see one of the three works there on the screen. So I discovered several things that I was wonder, and I was very interested to know. First of all, this work, I did it when I, for example, create the image of Kwanian tardigrade. And after I was interested if, for example, like in the 60s, when we know in conceptual art, if somebody do some work of art and after it's copying it in a copy machine, because it was very popular at that time. So at the end, the work is completely destructive. Well, not destructive, but it becomes something else abstract. So I thought maybe if I will do the same with AI, I will find something. Actually, I do find that at the end, images, after more or less like 30 images becomes more and more simplified, very binary, just like, and at the end I arrived in a very simplest presentation of what I asked at the beginning. So it means that for a moment, for me, it was like, wow, discovery that if AI is not really on this big net and not picking up different kinds of their sources, like imagery sources from the big web, actually it's exhausted very quickly. So after it was a question, if AI really one day arrive some kinds of level that it will be more than our human intellectual. So let's wait. And here I have another work, and this is also, but this work it's mainly because if in Midjourney that I used for Kwanian tardigrade, I was using prompt, just text like a base. Or another work, this is just pure blending. Again, Midjourney and a little bit with ChatGPT. So I was blending the images, my images, and to create this working of time, because I'm quite interested about time, and I just not very positive about this subject because it becomes more and more quicker, and I would like to have it slow down. But yes, so totem of time, it was some sort of the blending images that I create, and I was based on my drawing, and after on some images of the meat grinder from the internet. So after it was possibility to do this small sculpture, 3D sculpture, also printed by 3D. And I hope one day there will be very big in metal, like 10 meters, staying somewhere, maybe on the 42nd Street, like
Times Square.
Okay, so this is about my work, and
Great, thank you, Alexandra. And now, Koen?
Yes, I made these two works behind you. It's only since about 8 months that I'm working with AI. I've been working almost with everything. I made sculpture, paintings, drawings, photography, but especially in I started with in the 80s with video. What I found strange when I started to work with AI, I'm always interested to discover new things. You never know what can come out. It's just experimenting. So when I knew this about this AI, I took a look. It took a while before I could find a site where I could make the images. I wanted this kind of realism, and there were not so many sites where I could find it. Finally, I found something, and it was in the beginning. It was like a game. So my first work was Marcel Duchamp, The Secret Life of Marcel Duchamp, painting, drawing with paint in his atelier. It was so funny, and I continued, and one idea after the other came. So it's nice, and then I did put some things on the internet on my Facebook page, and I was surprised the controversy. Yeah, a lot of artists said that it was like you make a pact with the devil. AI, you cannot make art with it. And others said, wow, fantastic. So then I thought, this controversy, it's interesting, so I will continue. I had the same thing when I started with video in the 80s. I was thrown out from the academy just because I was working with video. And it was considered this is not art, and I was an enemy of art by doing that. The same when I started in the 90s working with computer. I had artists who also wanted to start a fight with me because I was also having a pact with the devil. And it's strange with AI, I felt a bit, maybe not that much because, how should I say, people are used already to work with computer, but still there was this controversy that it was really the enemy of art. But I choose these two for here, these two works. First of all, at a certain moment I was, because I like these images, but how to present them in the end. And I decided to present them like first of all, I couldn't choose sometimes. It's very difficult to choose which ones.
Right.
And I thought, well, there's always a conceptual idea. Is one work, but I chose the form of Bernd and Hilla Becher, the photographers.
Right.
I don't know if you know them, famous photographers in Germany in the 60s, 70s, who used the same presentation. And for them, they took these typical industrial buildings, and it was really like the honesty of the picture, the truth, no interpretation. Very straight, black and white, and well, never later it became color. But and so I thought, because this is totally a lie, I presented in the same conceptual truth way, just to have this kind of opposition. This one is called Participatory Art with Frustrated White Cis Males. And I thought there was this look-alike of the attack on the Capitol, and thought, maybe that's good for showing in the States.
Yes. I chuckled.
Sorry?
I chuckled when I saw this project.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Now, Lev.
Hi. First of all, thank you so much for coming. So my work, I really like it, but my work is behind me. It's a series of prints of digital images called drawing rooms. It reflects my traditional training and background in visual art. I started learning painting and drawing at age 13 when I was still living in Moscow, Russia. And my art teacher, I remember, wrote a beautiful book of works of Giorgio Morandi, who remains my favorite painter. And she said, and I was just like a little boy, she said, this is the great art, the greatest art which was ever created. This should be your ideal. And I think it still remains my ideal. And I'm looking forward next week to going to David Werner, who has, I think, a very big Morandi show right now. So I want to say two things, right? So on the one hand, coming from this modernist tradition of painting and drawing, I want to create beautiful, complex, subtle, sophisticated images, which should please me, please others. So it's not conceptual art, it's not contemporary art, it's not art about ideas. The idea is to create something which is unique, which speaks to you in a way, psychology of art, neuroscience, or AI science don't understand, right? We don't know why we like particular things, we don't know why we don't like others, and that's beautiful. I hope that the science will never completely understand how the brain works, why we fall in love with particular people, and also why particular images speak to us. So first of all, I want to create something beautiful, and I also want to be surprised. So that's one level. However, I had to write a statement about those works with personal exhibition. So when I come up with interpretation, so there's also intellectual level, which maybe will help you to look at these images in a particular way. So we see young people talking, smoking, talking with phones, creating, contemplating. But what interests me are the interior spaces we inhabit and accumulation of objects and details in the spaces. Some objects are placed in wall-side shelves, others cover coffee tables, sofas, and so on. In some cases, we can easily identify these objects. In other cases, they're hard to identify, and some look like fragments, in fact, traces and shadows of objects that are gone. Yes, they are fragments, right? So in the presence of this kind of fragmented world, but fragments of what? In a normal art, right, ancient art or archaeology museum, you will see material fragments of long-gone civilizations. You will see pieces of vases and plates, metal tools, jewelry, tiny statues, missing limbs or heads. These are real objects from 3,000, 2,000, or 1,500 years ago. But in generative AI media, fragments have different ontology. Right? When we train generative AI models, the computer extracts structures and patterns from billions of images or trillions of texts and distributes them across trillions of connections. In this process, digital materiality of images is further virtualized, evaporated, diffused. Right? So one of the many interesting things about generative AI media is that, like, we take existing reservoir, right? We take the existing kind of museum about Wald, which is now on the web, and the computer kind of fragments, breaks these images, text, novels, statements into text tokens, into pixels, and so on, right? And learns their patterns, and then this is all distributed, right? This huge kind of fragmentary network, and then you ask ChatGPT or Claude AI, the journey, stable diffusion to generate something, and then this new reality, new media objects are synthesized out of these fragments. So when I was experimenting, right, endlessly with the tool, eventually I got lucky and something happened, and it started generating this world where this fragmentary ontology of AI seems to be displayed, right? So I see the accumulation of objects where shadows and where traces, and this kind of fragmentary nature of this world, these images, as a metaphor for generative AI media. Despite their illusionary materiality, the generated fragments you see are like sands, invisible movements of air blown by the wind, or tiny broken shells left in the sand after a wave recedes into the sea, where fragments of fragments, deposits of already broken forms, with shadows of shadows. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Eunsu?
Oh, yeah. Hello. So, it's 2025 now, right? But in terms of art and AI, we have exactly same issues from 2018. So I was telling my students about all these issues that we have. For example, like bias data set, as you know, right? Racially, gender-wise, etc., culturally, and how unethically those data sets are collected. And also in terms of algorithmic development of artificial intelligence, even in 2018, we were worried about that the industry is leading the way of putting more capital. So using more GPUs, collecting more bigger data sets by using money, and then getting better result than individual researchers. It's still happening. And so almost nothing changes in terms of those issues we need to discuss and correct since 2018 and 2025. So I feel bad when I talk to my students. I cannot say anything that we are making improvements in terms of those issues I've been talking about over and every year, over and over. Yet, meanwhile, whenever we use emails, social media networks, when you are buying purchasing something on online shops, we are using AI all the time with your text messages, right? So it's inside of our lives already. So I consider them as our new neighbor. So we don't know them very well yet, but still yet we are living in the same neighborhood. Our lives are interconnected. So we cannot ignore them. You cannot ignore your neighbor entirely and pretend it doesn't exist, right? In terms of that, I really hope that we can show the next generation that there is a way for us to live with artificial intelligence together, collaboratively, working together, and making positive, like helping each other. But basically, AI is helping human beings. But still, we are making a better future together. So, in one way of doing it as an artwork, Donald Craig, who is pretending to be an audience there, he and I made this work together. It's called a headset. It's called a headset because there are 5 AI-generated creatures. And Donald Craig himself, he's also a guitarist, and 1 human. So these 6 creatures, 1 human and 5 AI-generated beings, are creating music together. So they are having jam session, right, Don?
Sure.
So Don, when they perform, Don will listen to these 5 creatures sound. And these 5 creatures will listen to guitar sound from Don, and they try to make music together. Just like 6 musicians would play together. And then as an interactive art project, we are inviting you to come and play guitar. That's why the guitar is there, right? And having the experience of creating music together with our new neighbor. So it's just a little fragment of our new neighbor. So that's what the work is trying to suggest at this point.
Okay. Thank you, Eunsu. Okay, so we now are going to begin a conversation. I have many questions that have arisen as you all presented your work, and we're going to go for about 20 minutes. Is that 20-ish minutes, and then we'll get to Q&A so that you all can participate as well. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. So some different themes that came up: real-time processing, aesthetics, new combinations, performing, these kind of identities or post-human selves, serialization, bias, fragmentation. Both Lev and Eunsu mentioned fragments of new neighbors. So quite a few topics to cover. I'm not sure we'll cover all of them. And I do want to give a nod to William Latham again, who was not able to attend today. And so actually my first question is going to be based on a recent talk that he gave that I viewed earlier today. And in it, he was talking about the oracle that is AI. And, oh, this is my timer. No, I still have time. Okay. The oracle that is AI, that it still can't answer one crucial question: how do we fix climate change? Now, that said, Eunsu, you were mentioning this. It seems as, we get greater capacities, we just use more. But one question I have for you all: are there any other crucial questions that you think AI, can't answer at this point? Or what might you be asking AI through your process, through your practices?
I think it's always the artist who has the idea, who puts the idea. But I can be wrong, but I wonder if really AI will come up itself with ideas. But ideas, maybe combinations of ideas that it receives. But I don't know. But my thing till now, what I see is that it's important what the artist wants with it.
Right.
Still.
Anyone else have a question for
Yeah, I could just go on that. I think apart from AI being efficiency tool we use for all kinds of things, like Eunsu said, it's our collective memory of the planet, right? So certainly there's a lot of knowledge, even if it's partly stochastic, which I don't know, right? And it's basically a Google Plus search engine. that's one interesting aspect, because why? Because it's broader than I am. It might have ideas that I don't have. And that's just because maybe I don't have enough time, enough whatever. And the second part is because it's stochastic and it might, we say hallucinating, right? It might also lie. It might be like a Dadaistic tool, but it's the glitches and the combination, recombination, which I think super interesting. And at the end, it's more interesting for me. That's for me the learning process, like Koen said, to be the human is for the time being the creator. But that's what I like more than questioning what can I not yet do, can do. So I think for me this part which enriches my work is what I draw for the time being, right? And but I also recognize what Eunsu was saying, all the ethical and but the capitalistic implications we have behind, right? So we could also question not what can I do not do, but how can we do AI which is community-based, ecologically friendly, maybe driven by community data, etc., etc. So that's could also be interesting.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I think, to me, the fundamental question is, what shall we be doing now? So in 2024, a number of research papers have been published in leading science publications such as Science and Nature, where scientists would do experiments where we would compare performance of various AI models and performance of experts in various fields, right? They would, for example, compare how AI performs like in with doctors, right? You have symptoms, and then who can do better diagnosis. Or you would take scientists from a particular field and you compare their ability to come up with new ideas and AI. Or you would compare their ability to write, short stories and professional writers. And in every of these experiments, every of the study, the result was the same. But already a year ago, AI was better than 95 to 98% of professionals. For whatever strange reason, I haven't seen a paper yet which would compare AI performance or performance of professional artists, but I'm convinced that once we start seeing these papers, we would show that AI is better than 99.99% of professional artists. It's better both as a kind of media maker, and it's also better as a concept creator, right? So if you ask AI to come up with some concepts for contemporary art, exhibitions, it's better than us. Right? Every time I use AI, it can come up with better media theory than me, right? Etc., etc. So the question is, within 2 years, we lived through this techno-cultural social revolution, which is one of the most important one in the history of the species, where we created systems. Yes, we can answer particular things, but they're actually more capable than us, right? And they're definitely more capable than 99.99% of contemporary artists who basically don't get any education in art schools and basically just trained, right, to come up or to follow questionable intellectual leftist ideas and to write statements, right, etc. So the question is what to do, right? Is it to make sense to do art? Shall we give up our activity? So that's for me a fundamental question.
Okay. So Eunsu, would you like to?
What I want to ask?
Yeah.
If an AI can answer anything?
Yes.
Okay. First, the AI cannot answer everything. They are very good at learning data, right? So if there is a specific data like stock change, in social science and mathematics, they are better at mathematics than human beings. Now, for sure, they are better at playing chess than human beings, for sure, because we have very good amount of data set, and there are specific rules they can learn. In terms of culture and art, which even philosophers have not been able to figure out what the culture is, what aesthetics is exactly, what we are trying to do with art. We just roughly knows that artworks reflect whatever those human beings are trying to figure out in that era. So in terms of that, in terms of producing things, AI is doing better. But in terms of understanding human culture, I think technically there's a lot more time we need to get there. That being said, if there is any really AI that can do anything, I want to ask the AI to create something very personal to me. I mean, that's that level of understanding. I cannot, frankly speaking, imagine any machine learning algorithm can do it. For example, you ask an algorithm to generate a dog, it generates a dog. We think that's close enough because we cannot distinguish, say, this shepherd and other shepherd that well. But if it really can generate model, right? So that would be a question.
Okay, thank you. All of that said, I mean, Lev, you were just mentioning how AI is more capable than us, but then Koen, you had mentioned that.
I don't agree.
Yes, and I realized that, and I was like, now it's getting spicy. This is great. So I want to go to a new question that is kind of elaborating on this point, and something that you have written extensively about, Lev, AI aesthetics, and about mass taste, and this statistical dominance of certain users that create illusions of this singular AI aesthetic. This is from a quote from May 2024. And so talking about attributing intent to the maker, not the tool in traditional media. You had written that, so this idea of the maker and not the tool. Now, is AI just a tool? So asking you all, and I think we're going to get many different opinions about that. And then can we also talk about this idea of aesthetics, AI aesthetics? So anyone want, Anna, would you like to mention that?
Well,
or talk about
I use primarily AI as a tool. For me, it's like, in my case, for me, it's like if someone would paint on a wet watercolor paper, just drops of color,
Yeah.
you can predict, you kind of using the certain colors, but you can predict the result. So, and it lives on its own. And I think AI lacks artistic expression. That's what comes from the artist, that's what Koen said.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Okay.
I actually have a great example I heard recently. So if you ask AI, for instance, how many children die per day from treatable diseases, it will give you an answer, 70,000. But if you put 70,000 children's shoes on a plaza, let's say, that's a lot greater expression.
Yeah. Anyone else on this end?
Yeah, for me, I use it mostly as a tool in
Okay.
my work, in this work. But on the other hand, I have to write the tool also, because I have to write the algorithm, I have to give information, because it's my work. I started with the idea of working with electromagnetic waves and also the voices. So I have to put in a lot of information into the algorithm, and I have to make the algorithm also. So it answers, in fact, the both questions that you asked, because for me it's a tool, and it's also something that I have to create from zero. Yeah.
Okay. Peter.
I think for me it's a bit more in the sense that already for since a while I work on this idea about a post-transhumanist world where we have a variety of species and understanding, maybe also aliens. I think the AI is going to evolve, and once it's being connected to sensors, Internet of Things, it will certainly will be richer what it feeds us back. I realize it's intelligent enough to help me on a reasonable discourse where it's a learning, and where the AI to some extent is also learning, or at least replying in the context what I'm asking. So for me, it's more the playfulness I like, sometimes the frustration that it's maybe not what I was expecting. And that would be for me also be the idea to deal or to communicate with the other AI, is this playfulness. So I see it more from this aspect, and getting sometimes frustrated, getting sometimes happy. And of course, an aside aspect of seeing it's also a tool, it has ethical implications. But the playfulness for me, the playing, and then of course, like Alexandra was saying, we produce
Yeah,
a lot.
this dovetails into
We
Alexandra.
select and we play around and comes out and out. So this is for me the way forward. I would say that's for me. I wouldn't say coexistence is too much, but it's at least part of the team. I would put it like that.
Part of the team. Alexandra, would you like to elaborate in terms of your own work? Because there's a playfulness to your work as well, I think. Or at least in this piece.
Well, but like in my work, I'm always try to find the limit of AI, just to go to how far it can go, and if it's really can bring me what I would like, or just I can find this strange space in between AI and my design. It's really more or less doesn't give it possibility to develop, and this is for me it's interesting, like what it cannot done that it's
What it cannot do, right? Okay. Would you like to share any more?
Yes, but I just want to say that when computer started, you had people totally against, and you had people who thought that computer would solve everything and that would take over everything. I have the feeling a bit that with AI is the same, and you have people who, for them, AI is really the enemy, and others, AI is God. It's going to become God, and it's going to solve everything.
So it's binary, kind of the thing.
A bit. As was said, I use it as a tool, and I think it's also with conceptual art. When conceptual art started, there were a lot of intellectuals who thought, "Oh, now I can make art also," because I have concepts in my mind, so I can make art also. I think it's this idea of conceptualization of AI. AI will come up with ideas, but we'll never understand really what these ideas mean. And I think it's really the artist who has to push it in a certain direction and to. But it's true, when I work with AI, sometimes I get something, it's really like a dialogue. The machine comes up with some ideas, it's, oh, this is interesting, but I say it's interesting, And it's not the machines pushing me.
And so the aesthetic choices are yours.
Also the aesthetic choices, but also what it's about, what I want in it. If I want a bit more like this, a bit more like that. But sometimes, effectively, the machine comes up with very interesting ideas, which I can use. But still, I am pushing it in a direction and not the opposite.
Okay, Lev.
First of all, I will try to very briefly explain what I meant when I said that the AI is better than us. Of course, that's not my idea. I will just open New York Times 2 days ago. There's a big article which says the scientists are having difficulty coming up with tests which AI can pass. But to me, it means something really practical, right? So there's always research by 2 people in the world which shows with AI, when you do this comparative with humans, it's better than 98% of doctors you will encounter in your life, or 98% of editors, like MIT Press editors, or better than 98% of curators. So yes, there are these few people who are better, but what is your chances of encountering them? Right? So when you go to the doctor, you're likely not going to encounter this 1% of doctors who are better than AI. You're going to encounter 99% who are much worse. So that's what I mean. Like in my everyday life, right? Like last week, I was invited to give a talk, some talk, in front of a group of Harvard students. They didn't ask me anything at all. With AI, can generate like a list of amazing questions, right? So that's what I mean. It's better than most of Harvard students. Right? So when people say, well, AI is not good as as Leonardo da Vinci, but how often do you encounter Leonardo da Vinci in your life? So it's very practical. And then the aesthetics. So there are lots of things to say, but very briefly. So I think in a kind of modern period, right, we think of artists as having a particular signature, a particular visual language, right? A particular, let's say, style. Of course, not everybody had it. Today we have lots of artists who do like installations, the videos, and this and that. And historically, we had also people who were like Duchamp, who were was like an AI doing different things. But more or less, we identify artists by their signature styles, right? Where they have particular voices. And now we created this new type of meta supermedia, right, which can simulate more or less well, like endless media effects, right? So I can make images using the same tool, which could look like etching, painting, and computer graphics, photography, and also can simulate voices and languages of tens of thousands of artists, right? So depending on my mood, I can be like this person, this person, this person. And this, I think, is also very interesting because it kind of forces us to question this whole idea of artists having a particular signature, a particular voice, right? So does it mean that the art now becomes even more conceptual than before, where AI can render the same idea in a variety of different ways? But it also means that somehow I'm not responsible for these works. I don't have this intrinsic connection, right? Because I can, for example, retexture the same images in different style. So that's, I think, it's a very interesting question, right? The fact that we created this machine, which doesn't simply have limitations and affordances the way computer graphics had or the way film had, but the machine which can actually simulate all the existing media
The
and
simulation
also combine
machine.
them.
Yeah, you
Which
call
of
it the
course
simulation
exactly
machine.
makes AI compatible with digital media, because that's exactly what I wrote about digital media 15 years ago.
I
when
know,
I
I
wrote
know.
about different mixability. So I do see it as like intensification of this process. Yeah, it's the same thing, but intensified, right?
Right.
Just like this kind of very fundamental remixing and simulation on the kind of where one medium is a meta media, which of course what I said about digital media.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very tempting to see generated media as extension of postmodernism, as extension of remix, as extension of digital media. It's probably also something else, but maybe it's way too early to understand what the difference is, right? Yes.
So I want to get to your idea. No, this is great. Your ideas on that, Eunsu, as well. But I did want to mention, Lev, that I think I think it was an Instagram post where you wrote about this idea that when we discover that, an AI is smarter than or more capable than a particular person in an industry, 99% of those people in that industry, that what the human can do in a response when the AI is capable of everything, the human then actually narrows the parameters. And I thought that was a really interesting take, or response. So.
Yes.
But
that's why I want to still champion Marandi as like the artist of the era, like somebody who works with like extremely narrow limits.
Very narrow limits,
Yeah,
and aesthetic, and not just conceptual. And then Eunsu, though, I want to get your ideas on our conversation we were just having. Yeah. The tool, about the tool, and also aesthetics, if you'd like to address that.
About the tool question. Okay, this is the same question we've been asking since 2016. I actually give different answers based on the audience. So when I'm talking to general audience, who in general would anthropomorphize AI, like AI is going to replace human beings, and we are going to have this time that everything will be, humans will be slaves, etc. Then I tell them it's just a tool. It's made by humans. It's created by humans. It's everything that's in the algorithm has been decided by humans. And AI anyway have no desire or soul, no emotion, and it cannot have desire to kill people anyway. But at the same time, when I'm talking to my computer science colleagues, they would say, well, it's just AI models are just it does what we made it to do. It's just like printer, it's the same thing, like other machines. But then I tend to share my experience with them when I work with machine learning models or algorithms. Unlike previous digital tools I was using, it's not one-on-one. It's not that I have input one and I get output one, but I give input one, I may get output 0 and 100 and -10. So it's not exactly doing what I tell it to do. It gives me suggestions. That's actually very different experience, especially I've been working with human collaborators for a long time. I think it's a little closer to collaborating with human beings than just using previous digital tools. So there's some this in-between experience. So I tend to share that with my colleagues, especially from machine and computer science side. So I say yes and no.
Right, depending on the audience. I think
And
that's,
in terms of aesthetics, you first mentioned that people complain about each AI model has its own style.
Mhm.
That's frankly speaking, it's not really true because it's a user problem.
Mm.
So let's say there is in Photoshop, you are a professionally trained designer. You can make completely different result from like someone who doesn't know how to use it very well. It's exactly the same thing. So if you have enough knowledge, for example, architectural, periodic, like artistic history, so you can give a specific name, specific period, specific style, then it will generate in response to your knowledge. So someone just say, oh, I just want a very pretty flower painting, then it will generate that level of result.
Right.
So it's just responding to individual level of knowledge and like.
And if it's a very
That's the
generic,
request.
yeah,
So
generic
like
request.
Lev's result is this, but my son kept generating folk.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and Muslim, so yeah, there is that.
So I have so many more questions, but I want to be generous because we have reached the 20-minute mark. And so I now want to open this up to the audience. So who has a question for one or many of the artists up here? Yes.
I mean, it's just a comment for the idea of better, like what's better, because I think about the Renaissance painting and pre-Renaissance painting, and although you have a lot more perspective in the Renaissance paintings, the pre-Renaissance paintings, for me, have a lot more resonance and sort of spiritual quality to them. So the idea of better is very relative to, and again, like for example, the expression of that, what I see a lot, unfortunately, in AI is that there's not much, like, there's not what we say in French, le souffle de la vie, is like the breath of life. And even though something can be super complex and super, a huge dexterity, does it have the breath of soul in it? Or let's say if you put, a virtuoso in violin and put it against AI violin, is that human virtuoso maybe might make some mistakes, but it'll have the soul of the poetry that the dexterity of the AI will not be able to produce. So it's just like the idea of better is a very relative term, really.
One of the studies I'm thinking about is we basically took like 100 human doctors, right? And we took AIs and we said, here's patients with symptoms. The top doctors, the kind of doctors you go to New York, they will only write 64% of the time. The AI was right 84% of the time, so that's better, right?
Yeah,
so
that's objective.
There are lots of fields where you can actually objectively identify, right?
Right.
Yeah, and but art is something else, yes. But how often do we see great art? Right? There's like 2,000 exhibitions in New York now. Maybe like 2 exhibitions would be good, right? So it depends. But
I make paintings and sculptures, and I make also this AI work. And some people would say I prefer more your sculptures or your paintings because they have better connections. It's just for me, it's more or less the same. In AI, I can just do things I cannot do in paintings, or it would not be. Yeah, of course I can make paintings of these Picassos. It will not be the same. Yeah. So I'm not saying this work is better than that. So it's just it gives possibilities that you don't have with other things. And I agree. Here I agree with him, is when he says that the importance is the focus, the what you don't use, and the how do you call it?
Selection.
The selection.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I think. That's always the artist is going to do. But of course, AI is a multitude of so many possibilities, but it has already a richness that it goes over probably the human mind, but it's still the human mind who says no, this and not that.
Do we have more questions? I have more if we.
Question for the group.
Yeah.
Just during the art creation process, were there times that you feel like, oh, I wish AI could do this? And if yes, what are some of those?
Oh, so other projects where you're like, I wish AI, or I wish AI could do this and it can't yet?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Anyone want to answer?
Yeah, I would say just make me 100 masterpieces and I can go to sleep.
Yeah, so
Well,
that's.
so the power of this media, right, is that it greatly amplifies your input, right? You basically type it, right, short prompt, and creates music, text, images, lots of details, which have been specified. So that's amazing. It like amplifies things. But the problem, the limitation is that you don't have a control, right? So you get something and you say, I don't like this, I like this, I don't like this. So the way the industry is basically developing, right, and we'll see more and more, is keeping this amplification capacity, but also adding more control, right? So for example, where in Photoshop, you can select part of the image and do generative fill, and then this new part will be stylistically consistent with the rest of the image. Or like in the journey, I can give it images, which as I do here, to guide composition, right, to guide colors, etc. But it's still kind of awkward. So you can say, what the ideal. So basically, but since AI is already so capable, you can say, well, why not dream about the ideal media? So the ideal media would be, I want to have, make me images, make me music, and then, on the one hand, surprise me, on the other hand, take any elements in this media you generated and change it, right? So maybe change the space, etc., etc. And right now it's like these controls are very rough. So I can kind of guide generation, right? But I can't guide it very precisely. And so this potentially would be, the kind of the ideal, right? The ideal media, right? The dream media, which on the one hand can endlessly generate things which you wouldn't even imagine. On the other hand, you can edit them with the same precision as you can edit things manually in Photoshop. So maybe we'll get there.
What's your background? I mean, what do you do?
What do I do? Oh, I have a master's in music technology.
Video technology?
Music technology.
Music technology. Wait, at what school?
Okay.
Steinhardt. Oh, okay. That's okay.
Okay. So, considering your background, if there is someone with 3D or computer science, I would say please make a better algorithm that generates 3D mesh that's not too messy.
Yes.
I had such a hard time with my work and I couldn't figure out the better animation yet. But as a music technology person, that's one area the machine learning algorithms have not been able to achieve good results in music.
I agree.
It's so complex, it's so difficult. The algorithms mathematically can learn features from images because you just need to study pixels. But with music, there are so many layers and different components throughout the timeline. No one has not been able to make a really good algorithm that can generate music. Just they can copy certain level of music in certain way that all my musician friends despise. So that would be great if the sound generation and music generation can be developed further. But I can see that machine learning students or people in industry, they were frustrated because it was not making good results quickly, and it was so hard to study music features and understand the composition. So they gave up. They are not working on it. So if you can push someone around you, that'd be great.
Yeah. And come visit me at Tandon. What about this side? What would you ask of?
Well, in answering your question, I think it has to do also with the time dimension, because that actually makes it much more complex, the time dimension in music, because you have the notes, you can look at the notes, you can look at the frequencies, but you have at the same time you have to think about time and about the complexity of time. And I think that has to do with the difficulty of AI, and I would greatly have something that could work in that way. It's a bit like a game. When you play a game, you can venture exactly the places where you are supposed to be. But once you go outside of the frame, you have nothing. There's no sense. So the reason is because the designers didn't write something out of the frame. That could be something.
Because it's not efficient, maybe. What about you, Peter or Anna, or?
I bought recently a very old reel-to-reel tape recorder from the 70s, and there you have a few takes, because you can always record over and over, but basically you cannot copy-paste, re-edit, and say I have 30 takes. I think what the AI should do is to say, that's the shot, right? You cannot do it 1,000 times. You can do it a few times, or like ChatGPT said, you ask me 10 times the same, I don't know what to answer else. So I think in terms of working process, there could be a different way, like a human being, you say, I have enough, right? You ask me too many times, or if you don't like my music, go somewhere else. So changing a bit on the process of collaboration, if that could be implemented, it would get interesting. Then of course also make it scarce and not more abundant.
Oh, that's a fascinating idea, because we can be stymied by too many options, I think, particularly in image generation. Anna or Alexandra? Or Anna, go ahead, yeah.
Well, I don't know the sound that much, but it seemed to be, it was very interesting to listen to what AI can do and cannot do. So I'm learning myself in this sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, for a moment, I have difficulties to add something, because I think that all the main question about how it's functioning was more or less discussed. So just, yeah, and I think it's was an important topic about time lapse. So just how you work with, if you work with musical composition, how you can do it, but like being just in creation process, but in the same time control this creation process, not just like waiting the results, but being inside of it. This is for me still difficult, I think.
Probably in filmmaking, it's still a problem to make a story on a longer thing. When you see these videos, also this, it's always a short excerpt.
Yeah,
another,
consistency.
To another excerpt. I think there will be some evolution that maybe you can make a whole film just writing a scenario for AI. It's possible.
Yeah, and Lev, I think you wanted to interject.
I just want to say that I think one place is also to think about is the interface, right? So the models already like a little bit advanced, and with this huge latent space, right, of media, which you can generate, but we have no way to see the space. We have no way to systematically explore it. Right? You type some prompt, you get something, and you have tens of millions of people who maybe just using like 0.01% of all possibilities, right? So what we need is basically a new interface, ways to kind of visualize the space, ways to systematically probe it, like a whole kind of macro telescopic machinery, because otherwise we're like a bit like blind people, right, in the dark, like trying something. And of course, most people are going to try most banal things. And people say, "Oh, that's the aesthetics." Well, it's not the AI problem, right? It's a problem of this people taste. So, so I'm hoping that in the future we'll see kind of more sophisticated interfaces which can reveal to us the structure and also encourage people to try things they normally wouldn't think of trying. Just as the search box is a very bad interface to the web, right? We don't know what's out there, so it's the same thing. So in a way, the interface is a bottleneck, perhaps. One of the bottlenecks.
Yeah, another excellent suggestion. We are actually, I think we're at time. Can we take one more question? We are at time, but this has just been such a tremendous experience, and I cannot thank all of the participating artists enough for sharing your time with us and your insights, and for all of you in the audience coming out today. do we have a few minutes left in the gallery after the talk?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so, you know, if you weren't able to ask your question, please come up to one of the artists after we break this panel up, and also take a look at the show. Thank you so much. All right.
And I would like just to thank this wonderful place, the SWPK Gallery, to host us. I would like to thank CYLAND Laboratory, just always support different events that are organized by Latham Brussels, and by more or less be involved in this exhibition, helping also technically. I would like to thank also Flemish Ministry of Culture giving the grant for artists to come here. And also I would like to thank the community WALLONIE-BRUXELLES, always helping in our laser talk, but already in Brussels, but always accompanying us. And also personal thanks to Aernoudt Cho and this fantastic assistant that are here, Haile and John. Thank you.
Thank you. And hello, everybody online.